Okay, today we are on looking at details with ranges in cells. So let's go ahead and get census.xlsm downloaded and up to edit. And, like sometimes, and you've noticed this, occasionally we'll have like a lecture. I don't think we're going to do that anymore in this class. Sometimes we'll have examples where we do lots of different little things that don't really add up to anything meaningful, but I kind of show you the, kind of the waterfront of the space that we're trying to get familiar with. And then other times, like today, we're going to do something that's going to be like, we're going to make a useful application. So the trade-off here is that we won't see all the things that we could do if we just saw different little clips of things, but it'll feel a little more satisfying because it'll be like, wow, we made something useful. Like we've taken what we learned with VBA and done something pretty useful. So let's go ahead and take a look at this census data. So, oops, I didn't want to say census data. Let's look at this data. Someone look at this data and tell me something about it. I'll tell you the first thing, it's census data. Okay, tell me something else. Look at this data, give me something, go ahead. There are numbers involved. Okay, we got a bunch of numbers. Okay, what else? What else can you tell by looking at this? Maybe not just this sheet, but there's some other tabs. Snooping around might be able, suppose your professor or your boss said, Smithers, make some sense of this data for me. Okay, great. Now you got to figure it out. That's all you know. You got the data, you're going to figure it out. What else could you tell your boss about this data? Yeah. Okay. So what you're saying is it looks like we've got some kind of a unique identifier. So this, whatever this ANSI stands for, there's no duplicates. Starts at 0, goes to 1,000, and then it's like it counts up by 2 is 1,001, 1,003, 1,005, and so forth, but there's no duplication. So you're looking at that thinking, that's probably an identifier. I like it. Okay, what else? So the inference from that is that whatever that is identifying, if I look at all the rest of the data on this row, it probably pertains to whatever entity we've identified with this 1011. But what is something else? Give me something else about this data. And this is like something like you'll get in like the technical part of a job interview. They'll give you a data set. It's a data set they've had to work on. And it's like, here, tell us something interesting about this data set. Go ahead. Okay, how did you get there? You said this is United States information. What'd you do? So you look over here in county names, and now you're recognizing states and counties. And you're going, this is information about the United States. Now, let's go with the last two comments. Can we connect up the last two comments? This is information about the United States, and that first column over here is an identifier. What's the connection between those two observations? Go ahead. Yeah, each identifier is a county. So if I look at this one, 1003, I should be able to come to my county names, look at 1003. That's Baldwin, Alabama. So this is Baldwin, Alabama. Okay, so we've done a pretty good job now about kind of figuring out the rows. Help me with the columns. Go ahead. So data dictionary over here has these codes right here. Well, this is an interesting one. This one says sex. What is that? This is resident population total females % in 2008. So if I go and look at the columns, I should be able to find, it sounds strange to say should find sex, but it's there. There it is. There's the column sex 255208. And is that what it was? Yeah, 255208. So, right. So that was, what was it? Resident population. What percentage of the resident population is female? Looking at those numbers, does that make sense? Like if I look in this particular cell, this is Baldwin County resident population female. Yeah, that sounds about right. 51.1%. Normally, I would expect to be a little bit more than 51% because men do things that get themselves killed much more often than women, so they die off faster. This one's interesting. This one has, who is this? This county has more men than women, like substantially more. I wonder what county that is. 1001, Bullock County. What's going on in Bullock County? I don't know. Maybe they got serial killers there, killing women. I don't know. Okay, so good. Yeah, so that's it. Like this is the data. So every row is a county. Every column is a measure about that county. So if we look at some of these others in the data dictionary, we should see resident population estimate. So that's how many people are there in the state, percentage change. So we've got some numbers that are, is this growing or shrinking over the prior census data? Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islanders. So these are just all different numbers about that particular county. Now, what would you say is that just looking at this data, is this data in a kind of a good way to say, hey, maybe I'd like to compare the counties in Utah to each other. Is this data well suited, organized in a way that's well suited for that or ill suited for that? I want to compare two counties in Utah. I want to compare Utah County to Weber County. It's kind of ill-suited. Like there's nothing, like this sheet that actually shows the numbers, it doesn't really tell me what, I mean, it's work to figure out even which counties they are. Because these are grouped by state, at least they'll be close to each other down here. But yeah, it's tough to do this. And then plus, I guess I could fix some rows and at least I could like fix that first row and at least get the variable name to show here, but somehow I have to map between these variable names that are kind of cryptic and what those actually mean. You know, I mean, there's some help here. This is about gender, so sex makes sense there. Age, that's going to make some sense there. But here's what I'd like to do. In the practice today of getting familiar with different ways that we can refer to ranges, I would like to build a tool that allows us to easily pick a couple of different counties or 2 or 3 different counties and be able to compare them with each other across these dimensions. So let's get down to business. I think I'm going to start by making a new sheet. I'm going to call this new sheet summary. It's going to just kind of show, or I'll call it comparison. UMPARIS. Oh, I spelled that right the first time. And I'm just going to put that as the #1 sheet that I have over there. And then I'm going to take the data dictionary. I'm just going to take column B from the data dictionary, and I'm going to put that in column A of comparisons. Copy that whole column, and I don't need it to say item description. I will leave those 2 blank lines there at the top. And this is going to be the sheet that I'm going to work on. What I'd like to do is have a way to be able to choose a county by its name, and then have it bring in all of the data for that county right there in the first column. Choose another county and have it bring in the data for that county so that I can look at those. I can say, you know what, I'm comparing like 3 counties. I want to see their value for the resident total population estimate percentage change. I want to see those 3 numbers right there next to each other. At the top, I want to see the name of the county. And if I can make a way to like pick that by county name to bring that data in, this would be a pretty useful tool to say, hey, I'm going to this be my county comparison data worksheet. So how could I make a way to choose those counties? Oof. I know of 2 kind of fundamentally different ways. Do you know of any of them? Go ahead. Oh, okay. So I can just record myself doing a Control F and like typing in a county name. And then when I play that back, I'd have to give some way for the user to specify the county name and then could do the search. Yeah. Oh, you could just type in the county that you want right here. I want to go to Gov County, Kansas, Gov, KS, Gov County, Kansas. That's the one I'm looking for. And then search from there. I like it. Yeah, I like that a lot. There's a lot to like about that approach. The thing to dislike about it is that you got to know the name of the county. You're going to have to type it in right. And that's going to be, I want to choose off a list. Give me a list to pick from. Then I can't get it wrong. That I think we're going to do just what you suggested. But let's, instead of typing it in, let's get a list. Yep. Data validation will let us, show me how comfortable you are with data validation to make a list on a scale of 0 to 5. 5, 5, 0, 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, it's really easy. Let's do it right here. The idea behind data validation is you're saying, listen, you're not allowed to just type any old value in here you want. We're gonna give you a list to choose from. Data validation is found on, I'm gonna do this right in A1. I'm gonna look on my data tab, And then there's one over here called data validation. That's the one I'm after right here. I've already selected A1. I'm on the data tab, and I'm choosing data validation. And the default here is allow any value. Oh no, we want to pick from a list. So instead of any value, I'm going to say choose this from a list. And then it's going to say, what is the list going to be? And I can type in, I think I can type in a comma separated value here, but don't type in like 3,000 counties. So instead, I'm going to tell it to go read that list off of a range. So I'll click here and then go over to my county names. And actually, that's the reason I created column D, is so I could have one column that shows the county and the state put together. So I'm just going to like highlight this range here in column D and say OK. And so now when I'm on that cell, you get a drop down and it gives me the names of the counties to choose from. Wonderful. That wasn't too bad. But now we do need to actually go and figure out which county number that is so we can get the right data. And we could record ourselves doing it. Should we record ourselves doing it, or should I just show you how to do it? Which way do you want to do it? Record or just follow? Just follow too. Okay, let's just follow. I think I can remember how to do this without recording. All right, so I'm going to make a procedure that does this, and then we'll figure out how to connect it up to this cell. So I'm going to open up my Visual Basic Editor, Alt F11. Push it over here to the side. I wouldn't mind still seeing my workbook here. And do I have a module here yet? I don't think I have a module at all. Yeah, no, there's no general module, so I'll choose Insert Module. And I'll make a new subprocedure. So new subprocedure, I'm going to call this get county data. Now, so step one is going to be like, I've got to go find out like the county identifier. I got to figure out how am I going to convert Marathon, Wisconsin into something that lets me find the data that I want over here, because it doesn't say Wisconsin over here. So I think that's going to mean I got to come over here to county names and search through column B. No, probably search through column D until I find whatever is in that cell, and then I will know the ID for it. So that'll be good. Okay, so my county name is going to be in column 1 of my sheet, comparison sheet. So let me just, I think I'm working with different sheets. I probably want to get references to those sheets. So let me dim compare as a worksheet. And then set compare equal to this workbook the code is in, dot worksheets. And it's the one that I just created called comparison. So now when I say compare, it will be a reference to the whole worksheet called comparison. While I'm at it, let's see, I think these other ones might have names. Yeah, my other ones have reasonable names. So like my county names worksheet is actually already called counties. So if I look here in my Project Explorer, let me zoom in on this. So we look here in my Project Explorer, my sheet called comparison is just called sheet 1. I'm not thrilled with putting sheet 1 in my code, so I'm going to hook onto the sheet called comparison. But someone has already named these two for us. So one is called counties and one is called data. In parentheses is what shows on the tab. To the left of the parentheses is the code name. It's the name I can refer to that worksheet directly by. So I don't have to make a sheet variable. There's already a way to refer to it by its name. Okay, so I've got compare set to that worksheet. And so now I want to do the find. on column D of the county names. So let me refer to the range column, county names, the name of the sheet is counties, dot find. Oh, sorry. Counties is the worksheet, columns, and I want the fourth column. When we use the cells method, we can put, like in quotes, we could put column D to refer to the fourth one, but the columns, columns, the columns method requires a number. And from there, I'm going to say dot find. And so this is going to look in column D, the fourth column. It's going to look. Now, what am I looking for? And unfortunately, I think the editor should know that this is a range. I mean, I have clearly specified a range here. But here's a little trick that I can do to kind of get my IntelliSense back, my IntelliSense help. Like, why isn't it showing me what I can choose from? Like, the editor just hasn't figured out I'm talking about a range here. So just for kicks, I'm going to do this. Dim R as a range, the range object. And now I'm just going to come here and say R dot find. That's going to be simple enough for it to realize, oh, you're looking for, like, you're searching a range. So it's going to tell me, give me the help that I want here. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for whatever is in cell 1, A1 of my compare sheet. So compare dot range A1. And that is one way that I can refer to a range. So we've seen now, so today is identifying ranges. We've seen a couple of ways to refer to a range. One is with the columns method. You give it the number and that refers to that whole column as a range. Another one is just with the A1 notation, range inside of quotes, inside of parentheses and quotes, referring to that cell. And I want, which property do I want of that? The value. So this is saying I want to find whatever value is in A1. Now, the next argument here is look after. I'm going to skip that argument, just put a comma. Look in, I'll take the default for that one. And look at, I do want this one. This is going to be the whole cell that I'm looking at. There's a constant for this called XL, WHOLE, XL whole. And then I will accept the rest of the defaults without changing it. But this says I'm looking for, I want to find a full cell match on whatever is in range A1. And that, not R, but actually looking for that in this column is what I'm after. All right. Now this is red because I've got parentheses here where it's not expecting them. Remember, I only put the parentheses on when I'm going to do something with what comes back. Now let's think about what find does. The one time we've used this before is in like the homework that was, you might have used this in the homework that was due on Monday, where you said, hey, we got this whole web query came in here and I'm not quite sure the cell that I'm looking for, but I'll find some other cell and then activate that cell. So in that example, it found it and then said dot activate. It made that the active cell. I don't really want to activate the cell. I just want to refer to it. But I would like to get a reference to that cell. So let me just go ahead and dim, I'll just dim this county as a range. And then I will set county equal to that. Okay, so now the idea here is that I have a variable that's a range variable, and I'm going to say, hey, try to find that county in this data set, and then just connect up my range county to whatever cell you found. Like when we recorded this earlier, it activated that cell. I don't want to activate it. I just want to know which cell you're talking about. Which cell did you find? And so the find method is going to return a reference to the cell that it found, and I'm going to capture that reference here. I'm just going to run this to this point. I'm going to say stop right here. So that will suspend my program in memory, and I can take a peek and see what county actually is evaluating to. So I'll run this, Control G, and just what is county? So that's actually county.value. That's if you refer to a range and you don't tell it which property you mean, it thinks you mean the value. Right? I could ask for the address And that is on D3137. So that's the row that it found it on. The Marathon, Wisconsin. Now I got a couple of options once I find it. 3137, where's 3137? I'm close. 3137, yeah, there it is. Okay, so now I have whatever county the user has selected in cell A1 on my compare sheet, I have found that county on the county names sheet. And actually, I'm assuming that it's going to find it. It's probably a pretty good assumption. After all, like the way the user chooses it is by picking a value off this same list. I'm searching in that same column. I might, in a different context, especially the user typing it in, I would want to say, did it really find it? But I think for this example, it's got to find it because we're using data validation on that column to choose it. It's got to be there. So I think I'm just going to, rather than say, did we really find it and do something differently, I'm going to say, great, we found it. Okay, what do I do next? I got to somehow get from this row now back to the right row in my data. Any thoughts? Yep.
See, so we already have the county name, so are we trying to find the ID number?
Well, what we have to do is we have to find whatever county this is. We got to find the data over in our data set sheet. We got to get to the right row.
Oh, yeah. So then wouldn't we just have to grab the ID number in A1? Oh, sorry, in the A column and then jump.
Ah, so you're saying whatever row I'm on right here, and I can ask the row I'm on just by saying the row, I'm on row 3137. You're saying look in column A of 3137, take this number and then do a search on my data set over here. In column A of the data set, we can do exactly the same thing. I like it. There's a shortcut. Anyone see the shortcut? Just look at the order these are in. 0, 1000, 101, 103, 105. Data set. 0, 1000, 101, 103, 105. They're in the same order here. Now, if I'm thinking I'm going to let people sort this data, then I probably want to take the approach that was suggested. Find the value and then look it up by number. We've just seen how to do that. You know what? I don't care which way we do it. One way is to do another search and find it. The other way is to say, you know what? It's going to be on the same row number, practically, because what was it, 3137? If I go to 3137 here, Control G, go to A, 3137. Is that my code? What's the code number I'm after? County names, I'm after Marathon, Wisconsin. Marathon, Wisconsin, the code number is 55073. Is that the right one? Same row number over here, 55071. Oh, it's off by 1. Why is it off by 1? Yep. Yeah, my data sheet has a header and the county sheet doesn't have a header. So they're all going to be off by 1. Let's vote. Who says let's do a search? That way it's sort proof. Let's search. Who says just go to the row? The searchers have it. Okay, so we can do that. Let's go ahead and set up another. In fact, I'm just going to copy this line because it's going to be almost the same. So let's set, I'll make another range variable. Want to reset? Sure. Another range variable is going to be, I'll call this data row. Can't call it data because that is the name of one of my sheets. Like my data set sheet is called data, but I'll call this data row. So now we're going to search this one. What sheet are we searching? The data sheet, column 1. But since we're trying to see how to refer to different ranges, instead of doing it the same way, let's do it a different way. Another way to refer to column 1. I'll do this. Here is a way to refer to Like just a hard-coded reference to a cell, A1. That's so strange to me that that works. Square brackets, and then just put A1, not inside of quotes or anything. Let me just come up here to my immediate window and say data dot square brackets A1 dot address. Yeah, like that is syntactically valid. So if I just is like a hard-coded cell and it's not going to come from a variable or anything, I can just type it in that way. Now, I don't want to try to search for that in just A1. I want to get to the whole column. Well, fortunately, a range has a method called entire column. And that is going to refer to whatever range I've identified here. Like I've identified range A1 here. The entire column is going to be the whole column for that range. So that should now be A1 to, or A to A. That's how you say the whole column A colon A. Wonderful. So now what am I looking for? I'm not looking for what's there. I'm looking for another way to refer to a cell. So this is going to be the value on my counties sheet, which I called county, it's called counties. We've seen the cells method. Let's just talk about it here. The row that I want is whatever row we found. So here's the cell that we found. In fact, let's just do it this way. I'm going to refer to that cell, and we'll introduce another way to refer to a range. So county is the cell where we found it. This is the cell that's in column D. The value I'm looking for is in which column? Like I'm trying to search for the number that's in column 1. This is in column, this is 3 columns to the right of that. And so I'm just going to offset from here. Offset. There's an offset method. A range has an offset method. And I can tell it the number of rows and columns I want to offset. And anytime I have an ordered pair to refer to a range, a cell, it's always row first. So it's row and then column. So how many rows do I want to offset? Like 0, because I'm looking at my county names, like I have found this value right here. That is the column that my county range is referring to. And I want to get over here. 0 rows change. It's the same row. Oops, it's the same row. So I'm going to offset 0 rows, comma, how many columns? 1, 2, 3, but I'm going backwards. A positive number means move to the right. A negative number means move to the left. And so that is going to refer to whatever cell is in column 1 of the same row that I found with the prior find method. And what I'm after here is the value. So what I'm saying here is I'm saying dot value. I'm saying now I want to set a range called data row equal to whatever. I'm going to now look at my data sheet, which is the one that has all the data on it. Look in column A1, extend that to the whole column, and I'm going to find in column 1 whatever's in column 1 of my county sheet on the county that I found. So that's going to find the number there. And then that's going to find that cell. Since I've called this data row, like everything up to here is going to be the found cell. So here, let me just say entire row. I'll run the code to that point. And let me see what the address of my data row is. Yep, it's all of that row 3138. Is that right? We come to my data and look for 3138. Yeah, 55073. I think that's right. 55073. Yeah, so that now has found the row that has the data. Whew. A lot of stuff. Show me on a scale of 0 to 5 how comfortable you are with what we have done today so far. 4, 1, 4, 4, 4, 4, 0. Oh no, I'm still thinking about it. It wasn't a real 0. Okay. Yeah, like there's different ways to find and refer to different cells. So now my task is, what I want to do is I want to bring in fact, I think the first thing I want to do before I bring the data in on my comparison sheet right here in B and column B, I want to put the state and then I want to put the county. So state there and then county. Okay, so this is on my compare sheet. So I've got a variable for that compare sheet called compare. So compare, what's a different way to refer to that, those cells? I'll refer to column, I'm going to refer to this one this way, compare dot cells. Now, normally, we're used to giving two variables to the cells method, which row we're talking about and which column. I can give it just one number. And that says, just start counting right here and keep on counting this way until you get to the end of the column. So I'm now on 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 16,000 some odd. And then the next cell right down here is 16,001. It's just one more, like they just count from the beginning. They count across the rows. So I can just put in here cells number 2, and that's going to be cell number 1, cell number 2. So that would get me to B1. It's another way to refer to cell B1. That's the second cell on the sheet. And I'm going to set the value of that equal to, now my county goes, yeah, let me do this. I mean, this is kind of showing you some different things. This was the expression that got me back to the first column in that cell, right? I said, look at my county cell where it found the county, and then go backwards 3 columns. So if I just did that, it would put in the number for that county. I want the state name to go there. So if I look at my county names, the state name is 2 over. So I could offset from there, but let me show you a different way to offset. From there, I can just say dot range. This is going to be weird. And then I'm going to say A1, 2, 3, A3. Dot value. This is like bizarre. Because this has nothing to do with cell A3. Let me just make sure that that's well, it's going to put Wisconsin. So let me do 4 and make sure that I get the right county for a moment, and then we'll adjust it. Object required. Oh, not dot value, just dot range. There we go. So, oh, it's not A4, sorry. It is D1. There we go. So that's getting me to my Marathon, Wisconsin. Ooh. I'm going to explain this here in just a minute. Let's look at this range right here. So this range that I'm looking at here, range is a method of what class of objects? Is it a method of the workbook? Is it a method of Excel? Is it a method of a chart? What kind of object is that the method of? Louder? A worksheet, yeah. Compare is a worksheet. And so when I say worksheet, some worksheet dot range, that is a method that is built into the worksheet object. It's actually called an object class. It's the definition of the object. Now, when I look at this one, let me get rid of the value here. When I look at this range, is this a method of a worksheet, or is it a method of something else? And if it's a method of something else, what is it a method of? What kind of object is it a method of? See, over here, I said range. I looked to the left of the dot, and I said that's a worksheet. Here, I said range. I looked to the left of the dot, and that is what? What is this referring to here? Yeah, this finds a range. So this range here, say from this range, I'm going to offset some number of rows and columns. That's going to refer to a range itself. And so this is a different method. It's a totally different method than this one. This is a method that is defined in the range class. And the range method of the range class behaves differently than the range method of the worksheets class. You're familiar with relative reference versus absolute references. Like the range method of a worksheet class is an absolute reference. You give it a cell number and it's like, that is the cell we're talking about on this worksheet. But the range method of a range class, it's a relative reference. It says, hey, pretend for a moment, just pretend that whatever cell we identified here is the upper left-hand corner of the worksheet. Like, in fact, which one does that find? It's what's it called? Marathon. I've lost Marathon. Where is it? Marathon, M8, this one right here. So this part right here refers to this cell. Like up to this point, it's like I found it here in column D and I shifted back 3 columns. I'm talking about this cell right here. Pretend for a moment that that cell is A1. Like the whole rest of this workbook up above doesn't even exist. And if that were A1, which cell would this be? A1, B1, C1, D1. That would be D1. So I'm going to put here D1. That would refer to this cell, but the one I'm really after is this one. And that would be C1. And so what I'm saying here is over my compare sheet, the second cell, B1, is going to equal whatever value is in row 31, 37, column 3. It's going to put the WI right in there. And folks, I got to tell you, this is nuts. I just don't know why they did that. Offset can do everything that I could do this way. But there must have been a good reason for it. I haven't found the good reason for it. And like the only reason I bring it up is because the macro recorder records this way. Do you remember it when it did this? Like we recorded something and it said put a dot range A1 after the cell we actually offset to. You may or not remember that, but it records it. And that's the reason that it works, is because the range method of the range object is like a relative reference. Pretend that the range we identified is the upper left-hand corner of the worksheet, and then go to this location. So I should be able to run that, and it should put Wisconsin into cell B1. I'll run it. WI, there it is. Delightful. Now I would like to get the county name to go in right here. So let's do this. We'll do a different approach on this one as well. Like this, I'm not showing you the most efficient way to do all these things. I'm kind of showing you some variety about how you refer to different cells. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say, to get another way to get to B2 would be like this. My compare sheet dot columns 2. This is my second column. That's the whole, that refers to the whole of column B. And from here now, I can say I want the second cell in that. So here, instead of cells of the whole worksheet, number 2 cell of the worksheet, this is the number 2 cell of this range. So that will start counting here, 1 and then 2. And so we're going to set the value of that equal to and why don't we do something similar here? So I'm going to say county dot entire row dot cells, and look at my county names. So I'm looking here at Marathon. So it found county right here. So county is this cell right here. And then I'm saying entire row. So I'm talking about this whole row here. And I want to get to that cell. That's going to be the second cell in that row. So cells 2 dot value. So I'm saying, you know what? I want the second cell in this column. What's it going to equal? It's going to equal the second cell in this row. And that should plug Marathon into B2. Ooh. All right. Now we just got to get the data. How would you put this data in here? How would you do this by hand? Like, what would you do? Suppose you're doing this by hand. What would you do? Right? The data is sitting right over here on my data sheet. I'm on this row. That's the data I have to bring in. Help me do it by hand. Go ahead. Control C.
Paste it somewhere onto Allison.
Paste it here.
Yes, paste it right that way.
Give me a little, someone give her a little help. Paste special. I'm not sure what I copied, but I didn't copy what I thought I copied. So let me come back here, copy this, and then come here and do a paste transpose. Oop. And so instead of pasting it horizontally, it'll paste it vertically. I like it. So let's just do that. I'm just going to do that approach. So, and in fact, I think I can do a little bit of a shortcut here because my column is taller than the column is taller than the row is wide. And so I think I can probably just copy the entire column and there'll be room to put it there starting in cell C3. Okay, so let's copy that entire column or the entire row. So I've got my data row. Yeah, my data row is the entire row because I found the cell and then said the entire row. So let me just come here and say data row dot copy. And then I think I like this approach to getting to that cell. I'm going to say come to my compare sheet and come to cell number 3 now. And let me do a paste special. I'm going to need a little help here. So we dim R as a range. Just so I can get some IntelliSense help here. R dot. Oh, it's not liking something. R dot paste special. And paste special has this paste type operations, like transpose is an argument way out here. So when I was skipping arguments up here before, I just kind of put the commas in. But another way to instead of putting these values in by their position, I can actually give them by their name. So I can say transpose colon equals true. And I'm not trying to put that on R. That little trick I'm doing is just to get the IntelliSense help back. I'm going to put that right here. So I'm going to find the third cell in. Oh. No, that would put it here. I want the third cell in compares second column. So compare dot columns 2 dot cells 3. I'm not entirely sure that's going to work. Let's run it and find out. So I'm going to clear this stuff out of here. Oh, yeah, that's not going to work at all. Oh, it's because I don't put parentheses around the argument unless I'm doing something with it comes back. So the argument just goes without parentheses at the end. My compare sheet, second column, third cell in that column, calling the paste special method, I'm telling it to transpose. There's like other things that I could tell it. I could tell it, you know, do I want the formulas? Do I want the formatting? Do I want to do some kind of operation like trying to, did you know you can like paste a column of numbers on top of another column and have them add together? It's like a paste special thing. You can tell me, I don't want to do that. I just want to put the values in there, but everything else is the default except transpose. I'm going to run that and see if it works. If not, we can get a little more specific. Well, looks like it worked just fine. Yeah, so there's the county number is that, and then the rest of these just line up. Oh. What I'd like to do now, this is pretty good. And this is actually bringing in the data for one county. I like it. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my stop. And now what I'd like to do is I would like to make this code happen. I'd like to make this code happen because the user changed the county. I don't want them to have to change the county and then run something to run this. Like they changed the county. I know what you changed the county. You want the data. Let's put it there. Okay, we have to introduce a new idea to do this. So far, every time we wanted to run code, there has been something the user says, run this code now. They clicked on a button, they did a hotkey, they chose the name of the macro off the macro list. But now I want this to respond, I want this to activate, I want this method to run, this subprocedure to run because they changed the value. And that is an event. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to view my Project Explorer. It's probably already open for you. It's one that shows the list of all of your sheets. So it turns out this module right here, that's the only place that we've put code so far. This is referred to as a general module. But all the rest of these objects, these sheets and the workbook itself, they all have a module built into them as well. And so if I come here to, what sheet is this? This is my comparison sheet. I'm going to double click my comparison sheet. I double click that, and now I've got a new module here. Fortunately, my other module is still there. I can double click it to bring it back. I come back to my comparison sheet. But what's interesting about this one is that these drop-down boxes that we have at the top are now going to be really meaningful to us. Because now this says, oh, you know what? There's like an object that you can respond to events happening on. So general means I could write something here that the user would just have to call in the same way that they call all our other procedures. It could be some button they click on that does it or whatever. But now I'm going to say, no, it's not a general subprocedure. It's a worksheet subprocedure. And that is going to activate my second dropdown over here. These are the events that it could respond to. Like I could run this every time the selection changes. Let me just do that. It came up with selection change. Let me just do that. I'm going to say debug.print now. I'll print the current time from the system clock. What's going to cause it to happen? Anytime my comparison worksheet, like I'm on comparison here, and it's the worksheet object, every time the selection changes. Well, how does the selection change? Click, there it is. It wrote the time. It's writing the time. I'm selecting a different cell, it's writing the time. The fact that I'm changing to a different selection is causing that code to execute. Now you'll notice it's passing in this target. It's passing in a range object that's a target. What do you suppose the range is? What do you suppose that is? That's like whatever is being selected. So I can put here target.address. And now when I select it, it's printing what I had selected. That's kind of cool. Now, it turns out I don't want to execute the code in response to something being selected. I want to execute the code in response to something different in here. What is it? Look at that list. What's the one I want? Don't be shy. When you see it, say it. Change, yeah. So I'm going to say, no, not when the selection is changed, not when the selection changes, but when the cell itself changes. I'll get rid of this one. I don't need this one. I'll delete that one. And what do I want to do? I just want to run my other procedure. I forgot what it was called. Get county data. I'm back to comparison. I just want to say, go run get county data. And so now the action, this is going to execute every time any cell changes. I don't want to do that. In fact, I hope I didn't just put any of you into an endless loop, because I think like when you change it, because this code changes cells, it would trigger that change event. Yikes. I only want to do that if the address of the range is A1. So if we haven't covered the if statement yet, so just believe with me here. If target dot address equals, and it's going to be capitals and with those dollar signs in front of them, $A, $1, then get county data. So now only if a 1 changes will it trigger getting the data. Let's see if it works. I'm going to save before I run it. And let's go to Kennesaw, Wisconsin. Oop, there's Kennesaw. Jefferson, Wisconsin. And there's Jefferson. But in the county, the state, and all the data. Yeah, this is great. This is great stuff. Question? Just a scratch? Okay. We're going to get a lot more familiar. This is referred to now as what's called event-driven programming. Like we're setting our code up now in a little place and saying when some event happens, let that code execute. When we get to building like complex dialog boxes, we'll have a couple of days where we talk about user forms. We're going to get really comfortable with event-driven programming because that's the way that these forms work. But I think that's enough. It's enough for today. And I'm just going to point one other event to you, and that is the workbook says if I come over here and choose I want it in a workbook event, it's going to default to open. This is code that would execute when the workbook opens. That's kind of a handy one to know. If you have something you want to do, like every time the workbook opens, you could put it right there. Or you could write it in a general module and then just call that procedure from here. I'm not going to do anything there, but just wanted to point that one out to you. Okay, now the problem is I'm not yet, this is called, the sheet's called comparison, but so far it's just putting everything in that first column. So what am I going to have to do? Come back to my module 1. Somehow I got to do something here that makes it so I can actually do some comparison. Any thoughts? Yep.
Can you do something that every time the sub is run, it moves over a column?
Ah, okay. So one approach would be to say, all right, I'm running this, I'm going to pick another one. Instead of going in B, I want it to go in column C. And then if I run it again, I want to go into column D. Yes, we could do that. Now, the problem is, like what I've done so far, I was like showing you lots of different ways to refer to column B. And this is going to get ugly because I got to think about each one of those individually and adjust those based on the data that's out there. So there might be a shortcut. Go ahead.
I guess you can ask two at a time. The second, the first split, you kind of just wait.
Oh yeah, so that's kind of the same idea. Just go over to the next row, depending on how many you want to have to go. Yeah, but so how do I change this to say C instead? I don't even think I referred to the column by its letter anyway. So like I think I've got 3 different things that I'm writing into the column. I'm writing in the state, I'm writing in the county, and then I'm writing in all the data. And I don't want to have to think through all that. There's a shortcut here. There's a great shortcut. We'll take it over here. Just insert a new column. It'll push the stuff over and then it's ready to go. So before I write anything here, in fact, maybe I'll just do that as the very first thing. Like before I'm setting my county or anything, let me just insert a column. And that's going to be like for column B. So that is my compare sheet. I'm binding onto the compare sheet here. So compare dot, is there a different way to get to the column? I don't know a better way. Columns 2 dot insert. And if I didn't know how to insert, I could just record myself doing the insert and it would be like, oh, that column dot insert. I think when you record it, it gives a shift, which way to shift your data. It gives an argument for that, but it's going to, the default is a shift to the right. I think that's it. Well, I think there's still a little bit more to do, but I think that will at least do it for us. So let me bring in another one. Invalid use of property. Oh, I didn't ever say insert. Did I? I thought I did. Dot insert. Compare dot columns to dot insert. There we go. What happened to my labels? Oh, man. It takes the width of the column as to whatever the width is to the cell to the left. That's bad news. If only we had a way to tell this worksheet to auto size that column to fit the data that's in it. How would you do that if you were recording? If you were recording yourself do it, what would you do? Yeah, just you just resize it, or you could double click this column, the divider right here, and it would automatically take it to whatever fit, the smallest that would fit all the data. That's called auto fit. We could record ourselves doing auto fit, or we could just type auto fit. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this column. I'm going to do the insert there. But after I put all the data in it, I'm going to tell it to auto fit. And so now that should just bring it in and have it the right size. We got Webster County. We're going to Tyler County, West Virginia. Oh, this is kind of interesting. So it is actually making it wide, which is causing my page to shift and then shrinking it down and leaving it there. That's ugly. So I think after I'm done selecting that, I think I probably want to maybe just select A2. I'll do the auto fit, and then I'll just select A2. So I'm going to assume that I'm on this sheet. So I'll just say, see, is there any other interesting way to say A2? Range. Yeah, I'll just do it this way, range A2. Well, actually, let's just do it this way so you can see it. It's kind of a weird thing to do. Let me see what the column number is, my very last column number. So I'm way over here at the far right, and I'm going to ask for the active cells column. 1634, so 16384. So that's cell number 16384. So cell number 13685 is this one. And that's the one that I want to select after I do it. So I'm just going to say cells 16385 dot select. That is a bizarre way to say cell A2. But now, when I select a different county, it at least leaves me right there for that county. It still kind of flickers off and comes back, doesn't it? Is that what it's doing? Can you see it? Kind of go away and then come back? I think I see it, but maybe I'm just making it up. It looks like you're seeing the flicker here. Let's see if we can get rid of that flicker. I think we can. I'm going to do it this way. So it turns out that one of the things that I can do to kind of optimize my code is this. It's a property. It's a property of Excel itself. So how do I refer to the object that is all of Excel? Anyone remember what it is? Application. So application dot screen updating equals false. That's going to say, listen, if we make a change that would require the screen to be updated, forget about it. Just don't update the screen. When I first learned about screen updating, I thought, good heavens, what happens if you turn screen updating false and you forget to turn it back on? It's like Excel, like you'll be arrowing around and the screen won't be moving. No, it only applies to code. So there's no way to turn the screen updating off so that it's fixed and you move the keys and it wouldn't move. Nonetheless, I am going to come set it back to true when I'm done. So now when I do this insert and it's going to say, oh yeah, make that thing wide, it's going to shift off to the side and I'm going to bring it back. All that should happen without ever updating the screen. And not until I get back to screen updating true will that show up again. So now we should have gotten rid of that flicker. It's just then displaying that data. It's a little bit nicer. It's not a lot nicer, it's a little bit nicer. Yes.
So if you're referring to cell 16385, but that's after you inserted the column, why doesn't that just jump over? Like, why is it still 16385? So you're adding column.
Oh, hey, good question. And the reason is when I add a new column, now, if I was adding a column on Google Sheets, I would have more columns in my workbook, in my sheet. But Excel doesn't do that. There's no way to say, you know what, I want to reduce or increase the number of columns here. So when I insert a column, it pushes whatever data was in this last column into oblivion. I think. Or it might fail. I don't know. Let's put something there. Maybe it'll fail. I'm going to put something there and see what happens. I don't know. Oh, yeah. You're trying to insert saying this is going to lose data. Can't insert new cells because it would push non-empty cells off the end of the worksheet. These non-empty cells might appear empty, but have blank values, some formatting or a formula. Delete enough rows or columns to make room for what you want to insert and try again. So yeah, it doesn't push it off. It pushes the column off. Well, I guess the data just pushes the data into the new columns there, but it won't push it off. Interesting.
So like you did have data there that you wanted to save, but like an if statement or something that like actually had column.
So the question is, what if we had data that we wanted to save there? Then if we know that we've got like plenty of room before we get to there, we've got some data over there, then we have to take the approach that was suggested earlier, which is like instead of inserting a column and then putting it there, you'd say, go find the column that's empty and put the information there. Yeah. Question?
So on the very first row on our insorted rows that has the state abbreviation,
Yes.
it is in a drop-down menu that you can like change what state it's in. So,
It is?
so I don't
Oh.
know if it doesn't change the rest of the code when we change that, but I was wondering if we can make that disappear.
Yeah, I like it. The problem here is what? Why is that there? It's because when you insert, it like takes the formatting for the column to the left. The reason that that column came in wide was because the column to the left was wide. The reason this comes in with a data validation here is because the column to the left has a data validation. If I had some kind of different formatting on the cell, this new column would have the same formatting on the cell. So, but you're right, we don't want to have that data validation there. Ugh. I don't even know how to get rid of a data validation. But fortunately, I know how to record. So let us record. So I'm going to come to my developer tab. You probably don't have to record. I think it'll probably be simple to see it once we get it, but record macro, I'll call it macro 1. And I'm just going to change the data validation on that cell. Data tools, data validation, and allow any value to go in there. Stop recording. Let's go take a look at module 2. List selection dot validation. Oh, dot delete. So it looks like I can just say that cell's, I just want to delete that cell's validation. So that is going to be cell 2. So and maybe I'll do it before I do the screen updating. Cells 2 dot data validation. Compare. I don't have to say compare because I know it's going to be the active sheet. But let's see if that does it. Something went bad. I don't know why that took a long time. It's going to take a long time the next time. Oh, that's terrible. Cells 2 dot validation dot delete. Why does that take so long now? That's terrible. What's that? Is yours taking a long time too? Yours is going fast? Yours is going slow? In the back, go ahead.
So code that takes a long time, if you an application that's going to take results, I'm not going to know if it's still running or happened. So could you put like, I don't know, cell changes to like pending or loading or something like that, then pause the screen false, and then change it to get true again?
I just can't imagine that it's actually changing anything about the way this looks. So I'm just going to take this outside of the updating. I'm not sure I understood your question, but let me at least do this and then I'll ask you to say your question again. And it seems like we should have seen it here and then had it show up. I'm going to put a do events here, which might allow it to show up first. Right, do events basically says, hey, anyone trying to get my attention? Is there anything that's trying to run right here? I think that might do the update sooner. No, still not doing it. Yeah, it's crazy that it takes that long. Is there something else that we could do to it? Is there anything here that says allow in the list? Valid input only, ignore blanks, and cell dropdown. Show input.
Would it help if you inserted the column like before 3 instead of before 2? So that way it takes the format from the second column instead of the format from the first column. Then we just have a blank column. Because it seems like we're having a lot of issues because we're looking at the format column.
Yeah, that is for sure. So we might be able to trick. Oh, you're saying just put all of this in column 3 and just live with a blank column or hide the blank column. Yeah, I think that would solve the problem. That would solve several of the problems that we're having here. I like that solution. What I dislike about that solution is I got to go change my code to go into column 3 and instead of column 2, which is what I was trying to avoid in the first place by doing the insert. So we'll leave that as an exercise for the interested student. So I just want to do one more thing, and that is let's create a procedure that clears this data off. So let's make another one called clear data, module 1. We've got just a couple of minutes. Can we do it? Yeah, I think we can. So let's do it this way. Sub clear data. I'm going to just do this. I'm going to say, be on my active sheet. So I'm just going to say, active sheet dot used range. That's going to be, I think we've talked about this already, but that's going to be the range, that the smallest rectangle that holds all the data on the worksheet. I'm going to offset that by 1 column. So 0 rows, 1 column. And then I'm just going to say dot delete. Dot delete? Let's do dot clear. Clear should do it. So like the used range is going to be like all of this data. And then I'm going to offset that range. See, I'm not talking about that range. I'm talking about the range that's 1 cell to the right of that. And so that will be everything except column A. And then we're saying to clear it. Let's run that and see if it works. That clears that off. So another way to refer to particular range. And put a hotkey or make a button for that, but I think that's enough for today. Okay, anything else? All right, thanks for coming. Have a good rest of your week, and I will see you on Monday. Class dismissed. You're too kind.